Hello! In this new video, we will illustrate how one can make use of QtDesigner to refine any user interface and integrate it into an ADS Python add-on. In previous video, we have seen how one can make use of his own UI using PySide2 by explicitly making use of functions like push button, line edit explicitly. This allows to get into this type of UI on the left-hand side, but the assumption that one is familiar with all PySide2 functionalities is not necessarily always the case. That's the reason why one can make use of QtDesigner to draw the UI of interest and even refine it more easily to add some images, change the background color depending on where the mouse cursor is, for example. So today, what we will do is to reuse what we have done in the previous video and rename the add-on like QtDesigner to start from where we ended up last time with the Python code and related run netlist GUI. I will advise to refer to previous video if one is interested to know what is the content of those files. To launch QtDesigner, which is something as part of ADS installation within the PySide2 inside the path that you can see right now, valid from ADS 2023 update 2 onwards. You can launch it and create the first main window. From there, similarly to what we have done in previous UI and previous video, we will create the same thing, same pretty much look and feel. First push button called open file. And we don't necessarily know PySide2, but the tool will do it afterwards for us. Then we can add a line edit. And the last push button, allowing to run the netlist. When it's done, we can finally resize the window as needed. And we can save the file into our add-on Python add-on. Let's call it my first Qt GUI. And you can save. To make use of this .ui file, we need to convert it first to a Python file. For this, assumption is I have defined my location of ADS installation. And then to convert my file, I can first go to the add-on location. And then we can execute the function to convert the .ui to .py through the pyside2.uic binaries. And I'll put it into my first qtgui.py. This will create a folder inside our folder, this file, which can then be reused in our code. You see, we retrieve the push button, line edit, and so forth. Fine. Now let's reuse it in our main Python script. For this, we need to first import it. And the function of interest is, let's look at it, UI main window. Then we can duplicate the first class we have defined before, create it from scratch, but we will now refer to our UI created with QtDesigner and rename QtDesigner dialog, for example. All these sets of lines have been defined directly from QtDesigner, so we can comment this out. And we will need to refine a little bit the code to make use of this UI created from QtDesigner. For instance, here, this will be .ui, and here .ui. We are pretty much good to go, except that this is not anymore my first dialog, but my first QtDesigner dialog. Finally, what we need to do is in the main init.py, specify that it's not my first dialog class we like, but instead we can refer to my first QtDesigner dialog and use it as the function to be called in our menu. That's it. We can then try to see whether this behaves as expected by unloading previous Python code and add our latest Python code. Switching to Python. Here we see that there is an error message saying that it cannot import my first QtDesigner dialog inside the netlist GUI. So let's have a look. Indeed, here you go. There was a typo, and this is a nice trick to see and showing how to proceed when there is an error message. You can keep as is, and hopefully, when now you will restart ADS, this will automatically launch the Python code and no message anymore. So it looks good. Let's open the previous workspace we have defined and try to launch the UI. And there you go. It is the same UI as what you have defined in QtDesigner. And here, for instance, it seems like it doesn't show what we expect in the line edit. So let's have a look at in our code. And somehow the line edit is not updated. So we go to the open file location, and indeed the line edit here needs to refer to our own UI. So let's update it accordingly. Can close and restart again. This way, it shows how to proceed when there are some error messages. And hopefully, now if we launch the UI again, open file, refer to the netlist log, now it's populated and we can even run the simulation. And this should show that the simulation is completed. That's it. So as a last step to show how easy it is to make use of QtDesigner to refine the UI, We will put some images and even change the black color and show how to proceed. For this, we can do this in our QtDesigner, and we can define, for example, here for the icon, what we call a resource file. You need to add one first. So let's say my source file. It is a QRC extension. And then you can add something like icons and refer to the file you like to and the images you like to consider. So for this, some images could be reused. And for instance, we can put it into the QtDesigner add-on. This way, we can add both files to our resource file and click OK, because this one we like to refer to the open file icon. And say OK. You see here the icon has been added, and we actually don't even need anymore the text file. We do the same for a netlist. So here, that's it. So if we want to go even more fancy thing, we could eventually change the color of this one and even the border. For this, for example, you can go to the style sheet, click on the three dots here, and the syntax is the following one: Q push button, background color, let's say white. If you click on OK, look at the background here, it will change to white. Even more, some more advanced option, you could even say the border radius should be, let's say, 10 pixel. And this time it will be rounded corners, as you see here. You can even change the UI to put it aside, like this. And going further, you can even change the color when the mouse is over the button. For this, the syntax is Q push button, hover, background color. Let's say you don't necessarily know the syntax, you can then directly choose a color, let's say gray. That's it. You can click on OK. Here it's not interactive. To see interactive window, you can go to Form and then Preview. This way you have the preview of what you will end up to, and if you pass the mouse over, it's gray indeed. We can do the same for the run icon. And let's test it. Control R. All right. So now we can resize and ultimately test this code like file. We can save it with another name just to do not erase what we have done beforehand. So like second Qt GUI. And the subtle detail compared to previous thing is that this time we are using a QRC resource file. So we need to also compile it. So let's first compile our second UI to a .py. And if we open the file we just created, we will indeed see, compared to before, that it is referring to a resource file. So we need to create this one from what we have done in QtDesigner. For this, the binary to consider is the minus RCC compared to the UIC before we have used. So my resource file. And we output it .py. And then you should be good to go. So before we launch the UI, we need to update the code accordingly. And then you can launch EDS to see if this behaves as expected. Gray, green, and indeed, you can launch. This will be put in green color because it's running and the mouse is over. And once the simulation is finished, button is passed again to white color and simulation is finished. So if we wrap up, the intent of this video was to show how to make use of QtDesigner to draw our own UIs with some more advanced feature compared to a standalone UI which requires some knowledge about PySide 2. Making use of images, contours, and background colors ended up to this UI using ADS Python add-on. Hope this video was useful to you and see you soon. Bye.